This episode of the Ryen Russillo podcast is brought to you by AT&T. I want to talk about guarantees and the lack of when it comes to windows in the sports world. I love what the Cavs did this year. They know their windows right now, and there's no guarantee that extends beyond this year. We think it could, but many teams have done so in the past. History tells us your window is shorter than you think. There are no guarantees. And then there's the AT&T guarantee. It means connectivity you can depend on, deals you want, and service you deserve, or AT&T will make it right. Visit att.com/guarantee to learn more. AT&T, connecting changes everything. Terms and conditions apply. Visit att.com/guarantee for details. I'm back, and I'm ready to talk hockey, but I'm also ready to talk NBA. Both were talked about, both were compared. Some of the stuff I get, some of it I don't get. That's the monologue. Kirk Goldsberry, we're talking NBA with him, the Spurs Wemby situation, and we put together our most complimentary starting fives of today's players. Life advice and a jury duty update from who else? Kyle. Let's talk a little hockey. I'm as Canadian as it gets. I'm not Canadian, but I'm pretty Canadian. My mother's side of the family, great-grandmother, she lived in Sherbrooke, died in Sherbrooke. Summers and Ayers Cliff, Magog, Albert Mines, Mose River, Milby, Rouse's Point if you get lost on the way back. I make my Toronto jokes. Some of those Raptors fans, I'll hate you forever, but that's not fair to all of Toronto. Maybe some of the surrounding areas, because if the business is true and you left your moms in the hood, somebody go smoke that ute. So I'll never necessarily get over that. I remember going back to 1996, Team USA playing Canada in the World Cup of Hockey, I believe. We were over at Berkey's, Hal, Sloak, Kirker. I had a bunch of the hockey guys over. You know, we were, 21, 22. They were like 24. But, yeah, some of the NHL guys, Timmy, Saint, Juice, Sorgi, whatever. We're sitting there with all these Canadian dudes. Some of those guys are American that I just named. I just like saying hockey names. And we're watching. Look, we didn't care about the result of that game 48 hours before it. We probably forgot and didn't care about the result of that game 24 hours later, maybe 6 hours later. But we sat in a big room. We watched the game. We cheered like American idiots. You know, maybe we played Freebird. It was kind of fun seeing people dress up like Ben Franklin, all the music and all that stuff. You know, America. Fuck yeah. But, these guys were devastated. I mean, these guys were really bummed out. All right. And I think one of the smart ass guys, the American guys from our group, was like, dude, Canada, there's nothing to, hey, there's tons of great things about Canada, guys. Don't worry about it. A lot of great exports, some terrific products. No reason to hang your head. It's just a game, guys. It's just a game. Meanwhile, pouring it on, realizing that none of us really cared as much. However, I think a lot of us cared last night, so I don't think it's fair to do that to Canada by saying, well, it's not even really a sport that we care about. Because we cared. I cared. I was rooting for Team USA. Binnington standing on his head in the beginning of that overtime looked like Team USA was going to pull it off. I'm not the trained hockey eye that you're going to. Defenseman, maybe Team America, goaltender Team America, forwards always a little behind Canada, but is the gap that big anymore? I don't know. But I understand what this means to that country, especially with my background. And I was thrilled for McDavid because I think when you're the best in the world, it's nice to have one of these moments kind of on your resume. But as I was off this week, because I will continue to miss All-Star Week, I will put out shows. I will not do live shows. I do not want to go to All-Star Week. I did it a few years ago with Salt Lake, walking around with my lanyard in the concourse. It wasn't even in the arena. I'm like, why am I here again? Why am I doing this? Thank you to the players in the NBA. Thank you for the CBA that gives us this nice little break. And I'll continue to take that break because I think the game stinks. I've watched it, I think, twice, maybe one or two times in the last 15 years, only because I had to do something work-related. I think that number's true. I just don't watch it. You know how I fixed the All-Star game? I don't have expectations for it. It's terrible. So the problem for the NBA, though, because of the timing part of this, is that what I noticed from afar as I was away is that the discussion as this Four Nations product was incredible and a dramatic culmination last night was going up against the worst week of the entire NBA calendar, and that's the All-Star game. Everybody hates it. Nobody likes it. Everybody complains about it every single week. Again, fix it by having no expectations for it. That's the way to do it. But the timing of it all, which is what will happen a lot with these discussions, is like, what are we doing today? What's going on? And now everybody's talking about it being like, man, the NHL gets it and the NBA doesn't. As an NBA guy, here's the thing. You should try this. You can like things and also think at times they're wrong. You can have a favorite player, and that player can do something wrong. Some people should try that from time to time. You have LeBron decide to opt out right before the game, hours before. It was bullshit. And it led to fair criticism of it. But PK Subban went on, former hockey player. He was on ESPN, and he's essentially like getting into the culture and how he, again, it was kind of an interesting balancing act of being able to talk about the culture of basketball versus the culture of hockey. But Subban was able to get away with having a discussion maybe others wouldn't be able to get away with. So I find that kind of part of it fascinating because, look, there are a lot of things in the NBA over the years that I haven't liked. I remember looking back at a 5-year stretch of the top 20 scorers, and I think the number that I had was like those guys had missed 20+% of available games. If you want to do a year to year, which is the most scientific thing ever, the top 20 scorers last season in the NHL, 14 played 80 or more games. The top 20 scorers in the NBA last year, 0 played 80 games. Only 3 didn't play 70, though, because it's been improving, because I talked about that 5-year stretch. Go back to 17-18. There were 8 top 20 scorers in the NBA that didn't play 60 games. Silver's done a better job with this. I think the teams have done a better job with this. I think teams were obsessed about it. I think members of the media were obsessed about rest and all the stuff, which, by the way, the headline doesn't really work. I don't feel like the league's just dramatically healthier now. But I think the teams were mandating it. The players are taking the criticism. I'm not telling you there weren't players that were thrilled to take a few more nights off, but a lot of this stuff is because of the new science and all the resources that were invested in this stuff. So everybody was going to listen to these people, and I don't know that you've had the results that have protected people. But the whole idea of that is so not like hockey. That part of it would make people completely turned off from the NBA or disgusted by the entire approach. And I think that's some of the discussion. But we need to actually talk about how these games are played. Okay? There's a major difference. I know this is shocking, and I can't believe I have to be the person that has to do this sometimes, but can we be fair about how a hockey game is played out and how an NBA game is played out? The NBA, it's what, 8 guys, maybe 9. 5 or 6 of the guys play 30-plus minutes, 30-plus minutes of the 48 minutes. The top guys in the NBA play 35 minutes a game. NHL, the top guys play 25 of the 60 minutes. Their shifts are like less than a minute, and then they rest. They have, 4 lines of forwards. So there's 12 players there, 6 defensemen that you rotate. So it's 18 players versus 8 or 9 for the NBA. And the top guys are playing 25 minutes total of 60 with shifts that end less than a minute of ice time. Do you think the NBA effort would be a little bit better if you were playing 18 guys, less than 50% of the available minutes? You play 4 possessions and then you would go on the bench? Now, maybe I've lost you, or maybe you think that's interesting, because there is something true about basketball that I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's just that you're the fucking man when you're an awesome basketball player, because in basketball, unlike any other sport, if you were that special, you find ways to get buckets, get it done, and you win the game. Where hockey, a million different things have to happen. Most of the hockey games that are won in the playoffs and overtime happen because it's just a mistake that the other team made. Football, you can do everything right. Somebody else does something wrong. It doesn't matter. Baseball, you hit it right at somebody. You know what I mean? Like basketball is the sport. If you are that special, you can decide the outcome on your own because you're only playing 5 guys at a time, right? So, like, there's some differences with the way the games are played. Like, hockey lends itself to be played at such a ferocious pace because you're out there for like a minute. And then there's all these other people that play. The timing thing is another thing that I thought was really weird about this. Okay, so you're comparing the hockey stuff to basketball stuff at the worst possible basketball time, which I've already mentioned. But I watched Serbia, USA. I watched all the Team USA stuff. That Serbia game is going to be one of my favorite basketball games I've ever watched in my entire life. The way I felt about that game, how much I enjoyed that game, the comeback part of it. And yes, that little moment of pride that I think is kind of cool to feel about your country accomplishing something, even if we're the favorites, because everybody's coming for us every single tournament. And it's this massive disappointment when we don't win the gold. And the Steph stuff. That is one of my all-time favorite games. That was great passion. That was the right culture. Those are all the things that you cared about. And it happened with the same guys that are from a league that just got shit on for a week, right? It happened this past summer in a way that I think all of us embraced. Would you watch that game and then watch Brewers Marlins in August of 24 and go, man, baseball's got a real problem? Did you see those basketball dudes? Did you see the culture and the passion that they played with? Of course you wouldn't do that, because it was the fucking Olympics against a regular season game. And again, I'm not saying the Four Nations thing necessarily was the Olympics, but I think that things are very different. I love basketball, okay? Sometimes I don't love the NBA. But we know NBA players, which can be both good and bad. It gets back to the roommate theory, right? The longer you know somebody, the less likely you are probably to like them. If you think of all the people that you've had a lot of access to, is the list a lot longer of people that you like, or did you grow tired of a lot of different people? Sometimes with the NBA, I feel like we grow tired of these guys because they've been in the spotlight for 20 plus years. I mean, Kevin Durant had a tweet the other day about hockey. He was basically inviting you to stop watching basketball, which is really stupid and just so self-centered when you think of like, yeah, that'd be great if all the best stars in a sport told their fans, go watch something else after you've pocketed hundreds of millions of dollars based on a television contract and all the daily interest on your league. Like, that's just the wrong message. But it got even dumber. And I like Durant, but he tweeted out something like, at least there's like loyalty in hockey. They don't trade the players. Are you fucking kidding? It's the most creative league in the world when it comes to trading its players. They'll trade anybody, dude, in the NHL. And maybe the loyalty thing splits both ways. Does the NHL have a list of NBA players? Excuse me, does the NHL have a list of players like the NBA where 4 years to go and an extension, they're demanding trades? Or in this case, before an extension even starts, NHL players are demanding trades? Maybe that's the turnoff. Like Durant did, like Ben Simmons did, like Dame Lillard did in a very short amount of time. But again, the tweet didn't even really make any sense. So whether it's like or dislike an NBA player, it's because we know them. Do we know NHL players? Like, look, I'm sure a lot of you that are big time fans of the NHL are sitting here telling, like, do you know Nathan McKinnon's deal? Leading scorer in the league right now, considered the second best player in the world. Do you know anything about him? Like, if you're listening to this pod, you right now, like, you may not even like basketball. Say you're an NFL guy and you just like the monologues. You're like, yeah, well, you probably have an opinion on Durant, on LeBron, on Chris Paul, on Russell. You probably have opinions on a bunch of these guys. Got any Austin Matthews opinions? Probably not. Look, I love hockey too. And I agree with a lot of the arguments that I heard this week. But I think specific to what was really getting the headlines, it was this victory lap for the NHL against an NBA All-Star game that no one has cared about for a long time, including the players. In June of 1994, SI had a cover. It said, why the NHL's hot and the NBA's not. That was 30 years ago. You want to do the TV deals? I'm not going to do those because it's massive. I mean, the ratings are down for both leagues and this kind of stuff. So, look, the NBA has plenty of things to criticize on the to-do list. The to-do list is, by the way, never going to be finished. But the function of the way the sports are played and the timing of this argument were incredibly flawed. Okay, let's talk some hoops. Kirk Goldsberry with us, now part of The Ringer, also professor, former front office staff member. Good to see you, man. It sounds like the entire crew was in your neck of the woods. Well, not the entire crew, but a good chunk of guys down there. Hoping to see some Spurs in action, which is probably where we'll start. So good to see you.
Great to see you, Ryan. It's great to be with The Ringer. And you're right, we had a good crew down here, including Ceruti and Simmons and Shea, Chris Ryan, Kyle, the whole group. We had a great time and got to see the Spurs beat the Suns here on the campus of UT last night, which was great.
Okay, so let's get into the Wemby thing because that's kind of the headline piece of this. There's a lot of different stuff that we want to do here. I'll admit, when I heard the news that he was going to be out, that he was going to be out for the season, the thought crossed through my mind of, is this all strategic about him? But then when you think that it's a blood clot, the serious nature of the blood clot, look at timelines of other players that have had this, how much time that they've actually missed. You are obviously very close to this organization. So he's out for the season. What do we need to kind of do to set the record straight about what this is?
I mean, this is a serious health condition. This is not a sort of tanking technique. That's a disgrace to suggest that. Given my proximity to the situation, it's just sad that people would think that that nobody wants this. I've had blood clots myself. It's a terrifying diagnosis. It changes the way you look at mortality. It changes the way your friends look at your mortality. So I think what the Spurs are going through right now is pretty traumatic, not just as a basketball team, but as a group of people, because their leader, their future star, has this sort of health issue right now. So like everybody, I was shocked by the news. I was devastated. And you just hope they can find a treatment plan that gets him right. One, for his long-term health as a human being on planet Earth, and two, as a basketball player. So I think it was a really devastating moment for the season. But in a way, it's a good thing they caught it when they did. And we're just hoping that we get fix this thing long term.
I want to talk about Wemby year 1 to year 2, because if you look at some of the counting stats, a lot of it's very similar. Some of the metrics are similar. There's also some win share stuff where it shows improvement, but funny enough, like the offensive stuff was a negative, but that was a negative because of the collective, I think. Mm-hmm. And one of the benefits of having Chris Paul is like the identified roles. When I watch San Antonio now, even with the Fox acquisition, which they're still kind of figuring out, Wemby to this point of being out for the season, it felt like they knew the rotation. They knew what everybody was supposed to be doing. The sub patterns, granted with last year's roster, they were trying a bunch of different stuff. It wasn't necessarily a very good team. I think Keldon looking much better, looking like the Keldon I used to like a couple of years ago, has also helped as well. So it just feels like it's a more identifiable team. What do you look for? Because like he looks like a better player as you'd expect with just a year of experience from him. So I don't want people to take a simple approach with Wembanyama into year 2 of like, well, you know, how much better is he? And does he take too many threes? What do you look at to better understand, you know, where he is improvement wise from what we saw in the second season?
Well, I think defense in a nutshell. And I think some of the more advanced individual defensive numbers, specifically when Victor's around, paint shots don't go in, is the definitive stat of this young man's career so far. And that has gotten better. In fact, it's some of the best paint protection numbers we've seen in the player tracking era. I think this man's ceiling was always on the defensive end of the court as potentially the most disruptive defender in the world. And I think from year 1 to year 2, Ryan, we started to see him assert that in deep player tracking numbers. You know, when Victor is contesting a shot, what happens? It doesn't go in. When Victor is near a layup attempt, what happens? It doesn't go in at a rate we would expect. Even compared to people like Rudy Gobert or Jaren Jackson, he's starting to climb above those guys. I think it's still fair to say he's not a great offensive player. I think that side of the court is where he needs to find his footing. And I think at times he looks awkward. I think at times he settles for shots that I don't think he's happy with. I don't think his teammates are happy with. So I think he's ahead on defense and still a work in progress on offense. But I always say this, the most important stat with Victor Wembanyama is this. He's 21 years old. He just turned 21. When he's 25, and I said this when I wrote about him, I think in the Ringer top 10, the second youngest guy in that is Luka, who's just turning 26. Wemby's not going to be 26 until 2029. So think about that. That's when he's going to be fully formed on both ends of the court. And that, I think, is one of the scariest things in the NBA.
Okay. You also got to see the Suns. They were 8-1 to start. They're 18-28 since then. They had a stretch where they won 8 out of 10, where I still didn't like what I saw. And now they're losing games at another clip. And when you start looking at projecting who's in or who's out of the play-in game, and clearly the Wembanyama stuff is significant. You know, I don't know if Dallas can lose that many games, you know, depending on what the health situation is with Anthony Davis. It just feels like one of the teams, maybe Golden State, one of the teams in this group is going to be like, oh, that guy's out of the actual playoff picture. Do you think that's the Suns?
They've got to be a candidate. From what I saw last night, remember, they're playing a game. It should be a really emotional game. So let's set the stage. We're in Austin, Texas. we're Kevin Durant people here. Kevin's playing his first game on our campus in 15 years or more. And it was kind of sad. It was kind of depressing. Royce O'Neal was their leading scorer. They have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. The offense looks stagnant. They had stashed Kevin in the corner a lot. I'm like, it looked like another UT guy. It looked like PJ Tucker out there at times. And I love PJ and I love Kevin. It didn't look like they had a North Star as a group. It didn't look like they were playing for each other in a way where the Western Conference is so brutal. They're going to get exposed on offense and defense if you're not playing like that. There's still a point guard issue. It was only one game. I don't want to overreact, but the thing I would ask you about, Ryan, is it seems like the trade deadline gossip and rumors around Kevin Durant have the potential to derail the morale in that locker room. And I think if I saw anything last night, it was a team that wasn't like thrilled with each other.
Yeah, I thought his answer about the dynamic in the locker room was very telling, because I think it was Ramona Shelburne and was it with someone else. So I don't want to leave anybody out if I'm not giving credit. So maybe I'll look it up a little bit later as we're doing this. But it was describing or hinting at a toxic workplace, locker room, all that kind of stuff. And then Durant addresses it, basically dismisses it all. But as he's suggesting why it isn't, he's not doing a very good job. He's like, hey, some guys are in the training room. Some guys are doing their own thing. Some guys are off here. They're on their phones. It's like you're actually describing something that sounds like it's not that tight of a group, or a group that's all that connected. And by the way, like people just rarely would go, yeah, once everybody kind of realized I didn't want to be here, then I kind of ruined the vibe around this entire team. Look, we had heard this summer that he wanted to be in Houston. That playoff elimination was embarrassing. Like Minnesota was laughing at those dudes. Okay. They had a good offseason for what they needed to do and get work done in the margins. I've actually been kind of impressed with some of the stuff they've been able to pull off. Mm-hmm. And I felt like they had come in, but the Tyus Jones point guard part of it, like what we liked about it in the beginning, like, hey, what a great concept. Have these guys play off the ball. When I watch Phoenix, it's still Booker having to do everything. It's still Booker having to do everything despite the Durant stuff. So like Durant's still going to have all these numbers. When I watch Durant now, there's just certain nights where it's a reminder of his greatness. I was watching, I forget which international game it was, because it was in the Netflix. I think it was because it was in the Netflix doc that I did where we were talking about Team USA and what they had done this past summer. But there was footage of Durant earlier, and you were watching that game. Again, you're going, Durant in that moment was the best player on the floor of anybody that was out there. And I know that's a few years ago, but I guess I'm just becoming more and more confused about Durant. Like, I just go, what do you want, dude? Like, What do you actually want? Because as soon as you get what you think you want, you don't seem to want that either.
Yeah. I mean, is it fair to say he's a journeyman at this point in his career? I wouldn't throw that term out, for many superstars, but he just seems to travel around, and the teams that he's played for since, and including the last year in Golden State, have had this sort of moody, dramatic undertones. And out of respect, he's one of the best players in the world. But teams sort of take on the personality of their leaders. And again, here we are. And last night he's yelling at people. He's being demonstrative. He's sort of pouting at times. And then he'll make a couple plays. You're like, gosh, he's the only player in the world that could do what he just did. But dude, you are, the way I look at the game, you are what your stats say you are. 55 games. I'm looking at their stats through this season. They're 20th in net rating. They have an average offense and a below average defense. I mean, what can you say to that? Why am I supposed to believe in the next 27 games something meaningful is going to change here, and they're going to become something they're not? And so I could see another playoff exit similar to the one we had last year, and I could see that being Kevin Durant's last moment in a Suns uniform.
Yeah, last year you could point to, okay, here's what the record is when the three guys play, okay? And they had that ridiculous, like just off the charts bad clutch offensive rating. Like it was so bad, Kirk, that I don't I didn't even know that we could do. You were just like, that can't be real. And like, that's kind of how it's playing out. Because I do think sometimes in the clutch numbers, you can have such bad stretches where the number looks terrible. And it's like, is that really who you are? And then I don't know what it is. I didn't look it up this morning. And I know they were back in the game last night, and then they, get run out of it towards the end. But that number was a lot better. Maybe I'll look it up again here. I have a to-do list while I do this interview. This usually doesn't happen all that often. But there was a turning point of that. We're like, okay, well, that makes more sense that it's better now. But I'm with you. I mean, look, 8-28, or excuse me, 18-28, 18-28 since that 8-1 start. Who do you like better, Memphis or Houston?
Who do I like better, Memphis or Houston? If Memphis is healthy and Ja Morant is available this year, I like Memphis. Long term, I think I like Houston. But for this season, my answer is the Memphis Grizzlies. I love what they can do on both ends of the floor. I love that Ja Morant seems unafraid. And that's the character that Houston is missing right now at the running the offense in a big moment, in a big game. It's not, everybody's been saying this all year, but the Fred VanVleet thing has been okay. But there are moments in a close game like we're going to encounter in the postseason where that Houston Rockets offense doesn't seem to get anything going. And for that reason, looking forward to the postseason, I'm going to say I like the Memphis Grizzlies better. I love Jaren Jackson. I love what they have as a what Jalen Rose would call their basketball geometry. I love how they are able to decorate the basketball court in a way that Houston, by the way, they should be thrilled. This team is on the road to something really good. But right now in this season, I'm going to take the Grizzlies, Ryan.
I think the Ja part of it, that is ceiling, if he's playing consistently and peaking at the right time, is the tiebreaker. If you look at the two teams as, maybe you don't even look at them as tied, because this has not been like the best production season from Ja. Jaren Jackson's taken it to another level. The fact that they seem to find rotation guys in the draft, as well as any organization, they can just kind of, they made a decision on Laravia's contract, which at the time probably made sense. Maybe they regret it a little bit later on, but he moves out. I think some other teams liked him enough to think that he's going to be a long-term role player, but here's a team fighting for a 2 seed that's like, we're actually okay moving him out with some of the other guys that they've gotten back because they have just really good depth in those stages. But I haven't always loved the Ja stuff from this year, but I know that it exists. It exists to a point where if he's playing for a month or 2 straight and he's healthy and he's good to go, I would expect him to be back at like peak Ja levels with a better Jaren Jackson. So I think that's the right call, because that offense with Houston, I'm scared to death of it in big spots. The turn taking, the ganging up on VanVleet. The defense is going to be terrific. I'm not worried about that. But again, that's another team where you look at the offensive rating and some of the clutch stuff for them. Their clutch numbers in general are just really weird, despite having a 19-15 record in those games. And by the way, Phoenix is 10th in clutch offense this year. So I knew it was better than it was last year.
Well, sometimes it just makes sense, right? They don't have a guy who can go create their own shot. Like that's the
Jalen Green's not that guy for you? Too erratic?
He's better in 2025 than I expected him to be at the beginning of 2024. And I would give him credit for having sort of this awakening, but he's not there yet. He could be there, Ryan. He could be there. And again, this team went from really bad to really good in the last 3 years. I don't have many notes. I think Ime has been a fantastic hire. I think the defensive identity is sustainable. I love this team. But yes, what you're saying, the weakness is this is a average or below average NBA offense, and that's just really hard to win with in the playoffs when all the bad defenses go away from the equation. And you're now playing against the best defenses in the West. You win round 1, okay, now level up round 2. Are you going to be able to score against OKC in the third quarter or fourth quarter when they're locked in? Again, no disrespect. I just think that's where Ja Morant or Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson has a little more to give in 2025 than some of these Rockets players.
Let's talk Cleveland. I love the DeAndre Hunter ad. I even like the Javonte Green ad because it's clear they are stockpiling wings here. Hunter makes sense because he's a good player. The Javonte part of it, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. They have to figure out how to throw multiple wings, even if their closing group could still be Strus as the fifth guy, depending on the spacing needs. I can see Atkinson mixing and matching. Normally, I'm like, hey, look, who are the players? That's who I'll pick against. That's who I'll pick for. But Atkinson has done, I think, in the case here, one of those rare on-the-fly movements where it's just like, look, we have the pieces already here. We need to play the game a little bit differently, and certainly having better health this year than last year's part of it. I went from nice story to I'm fully on board with them winning the East, even if I still will pick Boston in a series against them.
I remember I thought I was bullish on the Cleveland Cavaliers at the beginning of the year. I said, hey, I think this team could be second. And to everybody's credit, they're first. They deserve to be first. And I think you're exactly right. They went from a cool story to, oh, this might be a problem for the Celtics. This might be a problem. It's the best first-year coaching performance in terms of like an offensive remaking since Steve Kerr took over for Mark Jackson. And what did he do there? It was a lot of motion stuff. It was, hey, how can I unlock this backcourt of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson? How can we get away from some of this pick and roll traditional stuff and play through some bigs? And Golden State was never the same. I mean, they just took off and changed the game. Kenny is the guy's playing such great offense and has really found ways to get the most out of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. Remember, Donovan Mitchell seemed like, oh, is this guy going to go to New York? Is he going to ask out? Like, doesn't seem like that anymore. And I think the biggest magic trick, Ryan, has been what Kenny has been able to do with Evan Mobley. And I remember talking to Kenny this summer, and he was like, I got to get this guy to shoot. I got to get this guy to shoot. And, this is the guy who presided over the Brooke Lopez metamorphosis in the Nets organization. And he recognized, man, if Evan Mobley can just stretch us out a little bit, because Jared Allen's never going to do that for us, we're going to be really hard to guard. And to Evan's credit and to Kenny's credit, they had faith they could pull this off, and they've done it. And I think that's been really, aside from the motion sets, the Evan Mobley shooting stuff has been one of the biggest parts of this Cleveland surge. But I love this team. And to add on to your point, I love DeAndre Hunter at the deadline. I think that could really be a difference maker in the playoffs.
When I asked you about Memphis and Houston, thinking about who the 2 seed can be and the rotation of teams that have been the 2 seed at certain stages here of the season, the reason I would ask it that way is because when I look at Denver, I go, okay, fully formed, and with Jokic. And the Aaron Gordon piece was a big part of like, hey, what's wrong with this team? And the depth issues that you worry about in the regular season, we're not going to worry about as much. But I think at least Brown is improved to a point where I think playing with Jokic just unlocks, like there's some Brown stats, where you're like, okay, well, that's pretty impressive. And like, okay, part of that's a credit to him. The improvement is athleticism, but it's also the fact you're playing here with Jokic. So I think we'd agree that it's OKC and then it's Denver there. But let's talk defensively and the trends, because Denver is not there defensively. Maybe we don't worry about it with them because we've already seen them do it. 17th in defense this year. Last 15 games, they're actually 18th. The Knicks are a good example. They're 18th on defense. They're 11-4 in their last 15, but they're 22nd in defensive rating when you go over the last 15 games. So they're winning all of these games. And I like the Knicks. I would give Denver the benefit of the doubt in a way that I probably wouldn't give the Knicks. But defensively, some of the stuff, the standard that you have to be at to be considered a real contender.
Yeah, it's my golden rule. I stole it from Zach Lowe, I think 10 or 15 years ago. He really drilled down on the fact that you need to be a top 10 defense in the regular season if you want to win the NBA title. And as a matter of fact, over the last 25 years, I think only 1 or 2 teams have not checked that box. One was a Lakers team that famously played themselves into shape. And one was the Denver Nuggets from a few years ago. And that was behind Jokic's masterpiece in the postseason. So you kind of have to factor that into the Nuggets playoff future. They've already done it, as you said. Nikola Jokic has a red flag on defense. His rim protection, I wrote about it right before the playoffs that year. And I said, I don't think they can do this with this guy. And I was wrong. Hand up, live and learn. But I still see that. And the thing with the Knicks is the same thing. Everybody's been saying, hey, can you have Karl Anthony Towns as a 5-man and win playoff series against Cleveland and Boston? Hey, call me skeptical. I don't think you can. And I would say the same thing with Denver. Can you stop the best teams in the West with that defense? Can you stop OKC and those young legs with a defense that's not that great? I'm skeptical. I still think that people overlook defensive excellence at this stage in the season as a predictive factor for who's going to do really well in the playoffs. And right now there's teams who check that box that are legitimate contenders. Starting with Boston, obviously Memphis and Houston, OKC being the number one of those teams. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. What OKC is doing on defense right now screams title contender to somebody who's trying to predict this with the key metrics.
Okay, so do we have that number? Because I know that we were talking about it this morning off the air. I'll update it then because I don't have the latest number. But basically, if you look at the Thunder's defensive rating and where they are in the season that they're playing in, the differential based on like everything, we're talking about all-time stuff. So it's not just the best defense in the NBA this season, where they are in comparison to where everyone else is in the rest of the league with this offensive explosion that continues every single year. We're looking at like one of the 5 best defensive differentials in NBA history. So it's not just that they're the best defense this year. And look, I'll tell you, there are certain nights where I've watched them and the audience already knows this, but I'm just rehashing it with you. That 5th game of the season, I think, against Wemby, they horrified him. Mm-hmm. They hounded him. They're like, if you wait, we will attack. The Houston in-season tournament game, where Houston couldn't even get their first pass set, like whatever they were running, they were having a hard time. And I'm not even talking about the entry pass issue, the endangered species, the entry pass, but they couldn't get the first action to go because of what these guys do. And, I was watching when Cleveland played against them, and that first game was a lot of fun, where Karis LeVert came in and he did hit a couple corner threes, but Karis wants to create on the ball. And you could just think what Kenny Atkinson and his staff is saying to him. Like, why? Like, we know how we have to play against him. You got to move. You can't wait. Because if you wait, they attack. And Karis LeVert's just out there dangling with the basketball. And it's just a disaster. And I don't think Kenny even brought him back in the fourth quarter, even though he had made a couple threes. And granted, he's not even on the team anymore. He's a perfect Atlanta Hawk. You cannot screw around with them. And now they get Chet back. And clearly in the games that Chet's been back, he looks a lot like you'd expect Chet to look, a guy who hasn't played basketball in a really long time. So I think Chet offensively brings them something that maybe makes them, like, there could be a version of events as this season closes where every single person is picking OKC once the playoffs get started.
I will be. I mean, they deserve it. The way I look at the game, I'd be doing a disservice to the analytics guys. But yeah, they are, to your point, the league average in offensive efficiency right now is, I think, 113 or 114 points per 100. They're giving up 104.5. That delta from the league average is one of the highest deltas we ever seen. I don't have the teams that have beat them in that category, but Sam Presti has architected a great Spurs-like defense here. He is a product of R.C. Buford, and he knows to win in small markets. Defense is very important, and he has built the best defense in the NBA by far. The gap between the Thunder and the Clippers, who currently are quietly the second best defense in the NBA, is massive relative to what we normally see in an NBA season. So they are an outlier on defense. And by the way, they're a top-ranked sixth-ranked offense too. There are some red flags, and I go back to a different game where Giannis at the in-season tournament really exposed their lack of size, which has been the sort of fatal flaw in their Death Star. I think for a couple of years, the Hartenstein acquisition was designed to sort of deal with that. But it didn't deal with that with Giannis. But they're not going to face Giannis in the Western Conference playoffs. And he's sort of a one-of-a-kind physical force that can expose that lack of physicality in a front court. I don't think there's a Western Conference Giannis out there right now. So I like the way they're positioned, obviously. And I think their defense is their calling card. And it starts with Shea, who is a menace. He leads by example. He deflects. He grabs about more loose balls than anybody else in the NBA. You don't see a lot of superstars or MVP candidates diving on the floor like that in this league. And so I think he sets the tone. And I anticipate picking them to win the NBA championship here in a few weeks.
I picked him this summer. So I can't wait to see what they look like with Chet and some of the defensive stuff. And I think what kind of offense he's able to just plug and play and be off the ball here a little bit. Okay, last thing before we get to our bigger exercise of the rebuilding teams. And I don't even know if Portland's in that right now. They probably are, but I know they lost last night to the Lakers, who we didn't even touch on here today. Who do you think has the toughest spot right now? Because the guys on Part of My Take asked me who's in the toughest spot. And I picked Charlotte, even though there's other players on Charlotte that I like, only because I feel like they have a LaMelo decision that's heavily influenced by probably the people in business affairs and just the people that their priority may not be on the basketball all the time. It's like, what do we have to sell? What attract? And LaMelo is a clear attraction who they've invested in. And that may be a tougher decision than some of the teams with lesser talent on rosters.
I will defend Charlotte here, at least as not being that. As we've seen, Ryan, I think ownership matters. I think we've learned that in the last few weeks following the NBA. And Charlotte has new owners, and I think they're committed to building a smarter team. I love Charles Lee. You want to talk about sort of assets, and I love the coaching staff that they've assembled, some former Celtics guys. Josh Longstaff has been around. I think they've made some good choices there. And I would argue that Brandon Miller and LaMelo, they're decisions, but they're also, if they make the decision to get off of them, they bring back a harvest.
Yeah, but not Miller. I'm not including Miller in this wanting to get off of them.
No. I'm just saying. Right, so I'm going with the Wizards. I should have said this. I buried the lead. Apologies to our listeners. The Wizards don't have anything like I just said. To me, they're the clear answer here. I don't see a Brandon Miller. I don't see a Charles Lee there. I would say the Wizards have a track record of not performing. So I'm going to say it's the Wizards.
That's probably the right call.
I mean, Jordan Poole is fun to watch. They're 9-45.
Who is he fun to watch for? The other team?
If you have a struggling offensive point guard and you need to get the slump to bust, you just get that Jordan Poole ISO, and it's fun to watch.
Was that kind of a Brian Keefe diss from you?
I don't know, dude. I guess Corey Kispert is somebody to be excited about. Sarr could still, I think he's pretty good. What
about Bud Carrington?
Yeah.
What about Koulibaly, dude? Would you do LaMelo for Koulibaly? Okay, dude. All right. I have to stop because I want to do this. Although Toronto might be in a tougher spot than everybody because Masai's decided to pay Scotty Barnes next year, who we like a lot, Brandon Ingram, who they just traded for, quickly, RJ Barrett, hell of a talent. Those four guys next year are going to be making $137 million combined. You want to get weird and throw in Pirtle, then throw in another $20 million. Pirtle at $20 million, probably not the worst deal that you're going to have there. This is a very strange approach to building a team. I mean, like these guys that are kind of good, but you wouldn't want to pay. And I'm not including Scotty Barnes in this. All right. And some people, I felt like Simmons was kind of turning the page on Scotty Barnes in a way that I had to push back on a little bit more when we were talking and doing his trade value ranking stuff, because it just felt weird that Paolo was 8 and Scotty Barnes was 58. I was like, I like Paolo better, but is it 50 spots? But those four dudes to be spending $137 million on next year is not necessarily the way. Like if there was a seminar in Vegas, they will not use this as a way to be like, this is what GM should be doing.
Yeah, I think Toronto, since winning the title, has made a series of big moves, and I don't know if they've lined up for a really strong second half of the 2020s. In fact, I would say Brandon Ingram reminds me of paying DeMar DeRozan did a few years ago. It feels like he's a talented player. He's a great scorer, but really, what's the ceiling of your team when you have a Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes cap sheet? Like those are your two headliners on your cap sheet. What's the ceiling here? Again, this is a league where you're playing Boston and Cleveland. Indiana looks good. The East is the Knicks. Like it's hard to get up there, and I just don't see those guys helping you overcome those other teams. So I think Toronto's fair to throw in there. But I'm going back to the Washington Wizards, who have been one of the worst teams of the decade so far this year. And I don't see a lot of bright spots there.
Okay, final exercise. I told you last night, I want to come up with the best starting five, not who are the five best players in the NBA. Based on everything that we know right now to this point of the season, if you were building the ultimate starting five to complement each other, maybe I'm just in that hockey mode right now, and I'm just thinking about teams and players and talents that complement each other. I have mine. I want you to go first, and then we'll kind of maybe work through the exercise together.
It starts with Jokic for me, and it starts with Stephen Curry and SGA in the backcourt, which I think is, if there's a weak link in my team, it's can that backcourt play well together? But that's where I'm going. And then I got Giannis and Tatum. All right. So Steph and SGA, Tatum, Giannis, Jokic. There were some hard decisions for me here. I wanted to do something crazy like put Franz Wagner in there for Ceruti or put Derek White because I love off ball and defense. But I think I was able to find things. My philosophy with this exercise, Ryan, was I wanted to establish a few core competencies. I needed the diversity of skills, rim protection, rebounding, playmaking, three-point shooting, paint scoring, passing, screening. And my group addressed all of those, and I hired specific members of my group to address those core competencies.
Okay, I like this. Because the original draft, we had 4 or 5 of the same. And then if I switch out something, then it would be 4 or 5 of the same. So I didn't think we would be this aligned. Wait, tell me about your Derek White approach.
Derek White, so I'm biased because I was part of the group that drafted Derek a long time ago, and I've loved him. So I'm a little too close. Call it like a Nico AD situation. I'm pretty biased. I might be blinded there.
Would you trade Luka for him?
I would trade Luka for Derek White. Yeah, that's how much but I do love Derek. And as we saw in the Olympics, sometimes it's not the superstars that you need out there. And what I would say about Derek White is he's too good to be called a role player, but he's a great off-ball player offensively, and the stuff he does on defense. And again, when people do these exercises, they barely talk about defense. Derek White has the heart of a defensive champion. I love that about him, but ultimately I thought I could get that with SGA, with Giannis and Tatum. So I took him off of my short list.
Okay. It starts with Jokic, best player in the world, good place to start. Also a deferential player in the best possible way. You wish he would shoot more sometimes. Although in that stretch where there weren't a lot of healthy teammates and options, he started cranking up the output a little bit. So he could crank it up. He could have more counting stats if he wanted. He just doesn't see the game that way, and he makes everybody around him better. So because of that, I want people that are also good off the ball because the ball is going to be in Jokic's hands such a large amount of the time. So I agreed with you. I still think Steph is somebody that off the ball. The great thing about Steph in his career is he's another guy. Like you don't think he'd get 50 during those prime years all the time if he wanted to, but it's just not the way that he plays. And the fact that they've run so much throughout his entire career where he's not initiating the offense with the ball in his hand, he would be happy to be playing off of Jokic. And if you needed Steph to run point for you at other times, then you could do it. So when I thought about the defensive part that you talked about earlier with Jokic, because I too had those same concerns about him. Although I think guys because if you listen to those first two, you're thinking, okay, so you don't want to be good on defense. Like, where are the defenders? First of all, I think defensive stuff becomes a lot about awareness and positioning than it does just awesome contests at the rim, because we didn't even have contests at the rim the way that we used to have. And it's not so much like lockdown. No one will be able to dribble around me. Jokic and Steph are two guys, despite their defensive limitations, are always positioned because they're smart players. They understand the positioning part of that. So do I want to put Wembanyama next to Jokic? instead of Giannis is what it came down to for me.
Right.
Wemby is a much better spacing option than Giannis could ever be. And if I have Jokic out there, I mean, Giannis is going to find a way in whatever the 5 is, right? So I don't want to make this sound like it's a critique of Giannis, but at least with Wemby, I can have him space the floor while I get all that defense. Where with Giannis, is there any way that it clogs, especially when I add my 2 other wings? What do you think of that?
I think that's the right question. And I would say there's no way it clogs because Stephen, the other thing that Stephen does is he thins out the defense and terrifies the 10 eyeballs of the defenders at all times. He's distracting. And so we're going to have an expansive scoring area. And then I think the reason I chose Giannis, I mean, this is a guy who won finals MVP a few years ago with one of the best finals games we've ever seen where he scored, 50? And
get all of his free throws. Of all the times to do it, yeah.
I think Wemby would replace him in this group in 2 or 3 years. I just don't think he's there yet. The other thing is Giannis is a rebounder and as a rim protector, although Wemby can do that. But just as a physical force to pressure the rim. And here's the thing. Spacing starts at the rim, Ryan, and nobody pressures the rim as much as Giannis Antetokounmpo does. He freaks the defense out because look at the in-season tournament final. Dude, he took it to them. Power up the middle. That's the tush push of the NBA, right? Is Giannis going forward and getting to the rim. And I think that's the most underrated value of Giannis Antetokounmpo is Bud built that 5-out offense around him because he knew the teams had to protect the paint so much with Giannis on the floor. And that's really the weakness with Wemby right now. And if you talk to people around the Spurs, it's like, oh, that's how he's got to grow. He settles for too many jumpers. He should be a top 10 points in the paint guy. He's not. So that's ultimately why I chose Giannis for now. I hope that Wemby gets there, but he's not there yet, in my opinion. Okay,
so if I stay with Wemby because of my spacing thing, and you made a fantastic argument for Giannis, then I would go Tatum and then I would go Ant. Now, immediately you're like, where is SGA? You're out of your mind. I'd be a little worried about a backcourt of Steph and SGA defensively. I think SGA's oddly, like, he gets like defensive player, like defensive team votes, which kind of surprises me a little bit with him. But he also doesn't have to be the defender that these other guys on the team because they just have such great options. Because if I had Jokic, Steph, Wemby, and Tatum, then I need a motherfucker. I need one motherfucker, and that would be the Ant role. And Ant off the ball, I mean, look, the shooting is terrific. It's at 41%. Yeah. We could talk about him setting a little bit, but I think ball in your hands, can you get us something when everything breaks down and you're just on a side? I think Ant is still one of the best players in the league at that kind of stuff. And you'd put Tatum in that class as well. And certainly SGA is right up there. But Tatum is basically become the point guard of the Celtics, so you can move him around in a bunch of different ways. Maybe the limitation there would be, is he going to be as good off the ball? Is he going to have the same catch and shoot numbers? What are SGA's catch and shoot numbers? Because he initiates so much stuff off the ball. If I went Jokic, Giannis, then I would go Tatum, SGA. If I'm Jokic, Steph, Wemby, Tatum, then I have to have Ant because I need one dude who, it's my Matt Barnes thing. I need one guy that may do something that is a little in the gray area. I think every basketball team needs one of those guys.
Well, do we get Jokic's brothers if we get Jokic? Because those guys live in that gray area, bro. I think that's right. Tatum, I love Tatum. I had Tatum versus LeBron, and I disagree with Steve Kerr. I think that Tatum right now in 2025 is a more complete forward. His rebounding numbers and his defense when he locks in is still really good. He's averaging, I think, 8 defensive rebounds a game, which I think is really important. But I love the Ant point, honestly. And SGA, and when you're trying to build the dream backcourt, I think that's where we zero in on. Are SGA and Steph Curry a good pairing? And I said that. I'm not sure. SGA, there's a little bit too much ISO for me. It's a little herky-jerky. I think Ant can space the floor next to Jokic and knock down catch and shoot threes at a high rate, which, look, some people don't love that this dude is shooting 10 threes a night or whatever it is now, but he's good at it. He's shooting 40%, like you said. And I think that goes really well next to Nikola Jokic, as we've seen. And if there's a criticism of Calvin Booth and the Nuggets front office, it's like, give him more shooters, please. Give him more shooters, because he is just that good. And when they've had those shooters in Denver, they've been unstoppable on offense.
Was there any thought to Aaron Wiggins?
He didn't make my list. No. Tell me, what's the take?
I just love him. If we had to force a role player in there, sixth man.
I will say, to pander to our friend Ceruti, Franz to me is like the Swiss Army knife, or I guess a German Army knife, if we're allowed to say that. He can do everything, and he was on my list, and I almost put him on there. But again, he's a couple years away from being that guy. But I like his size. I like his versatility. I love his basketball IQ. He has become a guy who I think could slide into any team and just thrive in multiple ways. But ultimately, Curry, Jokic, SGA, Giannis, and Tatum was my list, and I feel pretty good about it. Without Wiggins or Derek White or Franz Wagner.
Okay, well done. I like the exercise. I just think how much Wemby's shooting would improve instead of like pull up threes off the dribble when nothing else is working offensively, where against having Steph and Jokic run around, you probably end up saying, leave Wemby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, leave Wemby for sure. He's 21. I mean, he's going to get to a point where he's a 40% three-point shooter, and that's curtains. And he's going to get there, I promise. Look at his free throw number. He's going to get there, just like Ant. And Ant's a few years ahead of him. But when Wemby shoots 40% from three, it's going to be crazy.
That is Kirk Goldsberry. You can check out his work on The Ringer. What do you have coming up?
I'm looking at Luka. We don't have an angle, but we're looking at Lakers, Luka. If you have an angle, Ryan, you're really good at framing these stories. Been a little disappointing early, so we're trying to hedge, but I think I got to dive into this new look Lakers team and look at Luka Doncic.
How about this? How about we wait like a little longer than 3 or 4 games before we start to say that LeBron's legacy is damaged because of Luka's performance a week in, where he played 2 games, had a week off, then had another game. Like, can we chill out a little bit on that? Like, I understand some of the arguments against LeBron, as I understand anything, right? Like, okay, yeah, I don't love that either. You are absolutely telling on yourself if you're like, well, this LeBron guy, we finally have all the results in. He's not a great teammate. Look how bad Luka's been after missing 2 months.
He scored 40 points in his 2 of the last 5 games as a 40-year-old man. I know we're running out of time. What is your Lakers ceiling for this season? I think the Luka story is a longer-term play, but what is your Lakers ceiling this year?
Depends on when they play Denver. So it's second round exit against Denver. I don't think the Lakers can get to the Western Conference Finals. That feels impossible.
Again, the defense is going to be the problem there. Too many one-way players, some savants on offense, and Austin Reeves is a nice player. But yeah, how are you getting stops in the playoffs against these teams? That's the question I'm looking to answer. But yeah, I'm looking at Luka Doncic, man. I mean, it's given us great content at The Ringer, and I'm going to dive in. So look for that.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you, brother.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life Advice. The email address, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. We've got Kyle. We've got Ceruti, Wargon, lurking. Little disruption to the normal show with the All-Star break, which I will continue to take with the players. Thank you. Thank you to the CBA for that one. As I mentioned in the open, walking around Salt Lake a few years ago, I go, why am I doing this again? There's no games. So, yeah. So here we are. We're live and ready to go. We have video as well. So good to see everybody. What's up, Ceruti? You got a nice smile going.
No, the boys, everyone's kind of coming back. Travel day yesterday. We were in Austin for the Bill pod. Late night, Thursday night, which was fun. Hung out with CR, Fennessy, Shea Serrano. Kirk Goldsberry was there, who will be, obviously, was on the pod today. So it was a fun time.
Kyle?
It was great. I took over the jukebox at the second place, passed around the phone. Everybody did a couple of songs. Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, I don't know. I think that Denver show was like a turning point for Bill, where he's just, now you just expect him to stay out late, which in my experience has not been the case. So turned over a new leaf, that guy, and I couldn't be happier.
Vibes were high. I will say Kyle literally was passing his phone around to the jukebox apps and everyone was just picking a song. What did you, I picked, I wasn't trying to like suck up or anything, but I had Steely Dan on my mind. So I picked Reelin' in the Ears. I was just kind of into that song. I had just watched the Yacht Rock doc and I was like, this is just on my mind. So that was my song choice.
I started with Night Moves just to kick it off. And then everyone seemed to like that.
No Linkin Park from you, Ceruti?
No, I did pick a Weezer song the second time that didn't get played. So, next time.
Sounds like somebody owes you a song.
Yeah. Kyle will get that one the next time he's at Frolic Room. It's like, why Say It Ain't So playing? What's going on here?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you guys got Bill out because the Denver show was interesting because he was texting me. He was like, well, what are you doing? And that was always back to like the Van Pelt stuff. Van Pelt never wanted to go anywhere. He just wanted to know what everyone was doing at any moment. So especially when I was younger, like if I rolled into a town, like I was going to meet up with friends and it was just understood. And he would be like, are you going out? I'd be like, yes. He'd be like, where are you going? I'm going here. Oh, how late are you going to be there? Like this late. Like, do you want to come with us? Yeah, I think so. But let me just get settled here first. Yeah, okay, no problem. And like in the beginning, I would fall for it. And getting settled was
tell all your buddies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess who we're getting tonight?
Van Pelt is ready to go.
Yeah. And then it would be then he would just go dark. And in the beginning, it would I don't know. I got over it pretty quickly, but I'd be upset. I'd be let down. I wanted to hang out with my friend. And he would just go like, oh, and then the next day I'd be like, what happened? He'd be like, it's just someone's watching a movie. And then I learned that he didn't ever want to go. He just wanted to know what you were doing.
Just go through the motions. Don't think about it.
You want to be kept in the mix. You wanted to have options. Yeah.
Right.
Just didn't want to have FOMO.
Exactly. Or maybe he really wanted FOMO. That was his high. Just constantly being updated.
Ultimate weirdo.
On stuff. Because then I would kind of downplay it. I'd be like, oh, he didn't really miss much or whatever. And that was, again, in the beginning when I didn't understand. And then later on, I would go, oh, it was last night. It's one of the best nights I ever had. Like, I wouldn't downplay it. I would upplay it. But Bill in Denver, because I have all those friends there. And so they're literally across the street. And he was kind of like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to go there? Are you going to, like, what's your plan? Like, and I went, I'm going across the street. And you are welcome to join. So either go or don't. Like, go. But if you don't want to, this will be the last communication.
Yep. There will be no more further updates. Yeah.
Right. And guess what? There we go. And everybody got full Bill. And now he's on a text thread with one of my friends, which I think is one of the most impossible. Like, I try to remind people of, like, this is a major, major accomplishment.
Yeah.
You're on a text thread with Bill because Bill liked you that much. And my friend sent some horrible texts and I get worried. I'm like, oh, this is
one of these ones is going to be the last one.
Yeah. I'm like, this one could go dark pretty soon. Kyle, you said something about jury duty. Did I hear that in the distance?
Yeah, a little bit of life advice here. I missed jury duty, I guess. I missed a summons. But even though last year, I think Ceruti
Did you miss it if you didn't know?
I knew. But last year, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, Ceruti was involved because he's my manager, and I just told him, like, hey, might have jury duty today. I check in every day at like 8:30, and I'm like, this might just blow up the whole schedule. We got to have people on standby. Real hassle when you're dealing with a guy like Bill. Even Ryan, big shows. It would suck if just we had to pivot last minute. So I did that every day, and every day they didn't need me. And I was like, good. this was an inconvenience, and I think it resets, right? You should be good for a while. It's like a tetanus shot. I don't know if it's 10 years, but you're good for a while. But so that was stressful. And then I get something right before like 2 weeks before this, trip that we just took. And it was just like jury duty summons. And I was like, that can't be right. I didn't do it. And I came home, checked the mail, and it's just this card with red lettering telling me I screwed up. And we expect response immediately upon receiving this. You could be charged up to $1,500. I don't respond well to threats. I don't really know what to do here.
I thought appreciate you put me in a corner.
I thought I was good. This was a large inconvenience. I stressed every single day for a week about this. I would think that I should go back to the bottom of the list. Do you guys know anything about this?
I don't know the last time I even got summoned for jury duty. I did have to sit in once. I had to go in and they told me to go home. And that was like the only day I had to do it. But that felt like it was like 10 years ago. So maybe I'm just like off the grid right now. I don't know. They don't know where I'm at.
I keep moving. They can't keep up with me. So they don't know what's going on.
All right, let me hop on slow. I don't know. This is a big pool of people to choose from. How's my name coming up again?
They just know that you're a real trustworthy person. Yeah.
Yeah. They've heard life advice. Like that guy I like the cut of his jib. Yeah. So I had it when I was in college and I was getting summons from home. And so that was kind of a weird Martha's Vineyard thing. And I think my father was just like, hey, the guy is in college. Like he doesn't have a car. It was when I didn't have a car when I was there, like, I don't know, the first couple of years. And then I did get it in Boston. And I remember when I walked in, they started up Miss Doubtfire on VHS in the room.
Just keep you busy.
As we were waiting. And they were like, you guys are going to be
a little treat for you guys here.
A long
Not everybody
time.
gets this.
Damn it.
And I was like, I can't do Mrs. Doubtfire and these C- subs. So I went to the bailiff? I don't know. And I was like, hey, can I run out to my car and grab a book? And he goes, no, you can't leave the premises. I was like, I'm just grabbing a book. I was like, is there any way?
Am I on trial here? What the fuck?
Yeah. He's like, we can't let you leave. And I go, my car is right in the front. He goes, all right, fine. And I wasn't like, I just kind of couldn't understand. I was like, exactly. Like, am I a prisoner? So I was like, can I just, get the book? I think I asked the second time. And he's like, fine, I'll just walk out there with you. And he walked with me to the car to watch me.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's probably seen a lot of runners. He's just like, nope, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I don't know, 10 pages in, somebody came in and they settled. So you guys are free to go. So that was it. I had a high school teacher that was really upset that he had never been asked. He never
really
wanted
to feel a civic duty.
It's nice to be asked.
Yeah.
Like Scott, right? Scott likes to be asked. He doesn't want to go.
It is kind of cool.
Like this teacher all that much. And he kind of like epitomized like the OG of some of the things that you may not like from dudes today, but he was older. He was like an older man, maybe the OG soy boy. So he spent half a class. I remember just being so upset because I think we had, one of those dudes who was too old to be in the class, and he was gone because he was in jury duty while he was a high school student. Jeez. And he's like, oh, lucky bastard. We're like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, I've never been asked to be on jury duty. And he was just so incredibly upset about the whole thing. So whatever.
Quick aside, though, speaking of Mrs. Doubtfire, this came up in the friend group recently, probably within the last year or so. One of my buddies let it slip that he has Dude Looks Like a Lady on his workout playlist, which was literally the most insane thing I've ever heard. Like, what do you mean that's great? That's insane.
I think I discovered this song in like the late 2000s, and I was like, this is incredible. It sounds great. I know it's weird when you parse through the lyrics, but I mean, how much of a microscope do you want to look at everything with? I think it's a good vibe song. It sounds.
You're
great.
Saying you're doing curls or you're doing lat pull downs, and Dude Looks Like a Lady comes on, and you're like, yeah, dude. Like,
it might have been on my MP3 player at Gold's. I don't know.
I'm not saying it's not a fun song. It's just insane. It's a gym playlist song is absolutely nuts. This was a 4-1. Like this is the 5 buddies. It was a 4-1 landslide. Like, you're insane. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess Kyle's on my guy's side. Shout out to my friend Jeremy.
It would have been 4-2. I'll tell you that. If I was in that group.
I think that's insane.
Okay.
And I was around for it. You know? That was off a Permanent Vacation, which had just a run of bangers, which got people really excited for Pump just 2 years later.
See, I'm not a big Aerosmith guy. I never really got an Aerosmith.
When I was 12, I really liked them. And then,
there was
kind of phased out of that a little bit.
There was the song from Armageddon, that was like, I remember that was like part of my youth. I just remember that being like a really dramatic song. What was it? I forget what. Don't Want to Miss a Thing, right? And I was like, oh, and then like you get older and you're like, oh, Dream On's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Never really got into Aerosmith the way I did like a lot of other bands, like older bands, I guess.
Yeah,
but Dudes Like a Lady is insane.
They kept going. I mean, they just kept going. I think Armageddon, that soundtrack, released every single song. I think I've said that before. Okay. We haven't done one question, so let's get to a couple. Josh Allen writes in, and this is one of the rare times you can use the name of the emailer because this question is about his name. No need to censor anything. I'm not worried about anyone recognizing me from this. Let's skip the gym stats. 6'3", 210, NBA comp, Luke Longley, not Australian, but I spend a lot of time in the post, setting up teammates, grabbing boards, getting putbacks. I'm all about getting the flashier players, letting the flashier players steal the spotlight. Here's my situation. I, unfortunately, share a name with a famous NFL QB who happens to play for the Bills. I know Josh Allen is just a combo of two pretty common names, but I've never really had to deal with sharing my name with a very famous person until the last few years. I work in a client-facing role in commercial insurance, not sales, but I meet new clients and prospects frequently, and especially during football season, I'm forced to endure the same dumb jokes over and over. On conference calls and in meetings, I get hit with lines like, better help, insert client, win his fantasy matchup, or nice game on Sunday, Josh. It's like they think they're the first person to think of this joke every time. Ryan, I feel for you. You know what it's like when people think they're the first to point out you spell your name with an E. I know. It happened again last week. I've tried playing along. I'll say something like, yeah, maybe I should track down where he banks and make a withdrawal. But honestly, I just get more annoyed each time. Once in a client meeting, I introduce myself as Josh Allen. But when I'm QBing, I'll be helping you with risk management. Crickets.
Damn. You don't make the joke. I make the joke.
Yeah. Clever girl. And deservedly so. It was a terrible dumbass joke made just to cut other dumbass jokes off at the pass. I'm 42 years old. I was Josh Allen first. Why should I change my name? Michael Bolton. He's the one that sucks, right? This is my name, damn it. I'm not changing it because some dude from Fresno happens to be good at throwing a football. So my question, what's the best way to handle this bullshit? How do I respond to the next jackass who thinks of the first to spot the obvious? Man,
he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be Josh B. Allen, right? That's what he's saying. He's not going the Michael B. Jordan route.
No, I don't think he's going to do a Josh B. Allen.
Okay,
because that would
he thinks the Josh Allen should do the Josh B. Allen because he was Josh Allen
right.
first.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen, and he's going to be really good for a long time because he's young.
Yeah,
so this isn't going to get better anytime soon. And I do like what the emailer said here is that if you make the joke first, or if you do anything like the other person feels like you're the asshole, like that's one where there is a massive disconnect from the person that was like, oh, I had this really cool, like funny thing you're going to say. Or if you're just annoyed and you relay your annoyance to open mic guy, then the open mic guy is like, a little sensitive, huh? And it's so incredibly frustrating if you go the aggressive path on this one. So I think you need to come up. You're going to get a lot of practice with these comebacks, man. You're going to get a lot of practice because this is going to go on for years and years. I think this is just like anything, a new skill that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to hone your craft, shave off the rough edges. And in a couple years, you're going to have incredible jokes, great comebacks, funny things to say as you prepare for it happening all the time. You could just say you're the defensive end. Maybe that works.
Didn't he change his name, though?
Did he?
I think he changed his name. Yeah, let me look this up.
No way.
What if you just played dumb? Like my buddy Blasco, who whenever there was any kind of confrontation, he would just ask what over and over and over again. What?
Yeah, here he goes. His name's Josh Hines Allen. So he just added like another name. Yeah, so maybe that's what you got to do. The hyphen thing is in now.
He said he's not changing anything. He's not doing it. He was born first. Yeah, I like that. I think you're right.
I would laugh. I would laugh way harder if this guy introduced himself as Josh B. Allen after I met him 2 years ago.
That would be great. Whoever gets it, yeah.
Right.
JBA.
I
Dudes
would
call
look
me
at him and
JBA.
just go, really got to you, huh? It broke you down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What would you do here, Kyle? What would be some of your comebacks? Can you think of any?
I don't know. You're right. I mean, I got this weird thing with Luka Doncic, who's now in LA. Shout out to him. I was here first. I'm older. The Luka jokes just are pouring in. And honestly, I could be compared to somebody way worse in the NBA. But some dudes just think there's a resemblance. And I'm not saying I'm struggling with it, but I don't have the right thing.
That's a massive reach, and I don't think it's that big of a hassle.
It's not a hassle. I'm just saying it's something I've noticed, and now he's in LA, and it'll probably pick up a little bit. But I don't really have something good for that yet. I just say he looks like me. I'm older. That's it.
Must be a good-looking guy.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it could be. Right? It's not. Nobody's saying I look like Shamit, so that's cool. But
it's a win.
I think
fucking Landry getting dissed again.
Come on, you're the guy who started it all. But
I said Shamit face. I didn't say that it was
I don't have
good or bad.
I guess you're right.
Oh, that's a great connotation, but yeah.
Right. I think Ryan, you're right. You just got to sharpen this until it's just, you're just quick on the draw with it and you're happy with how it sounds. And yeah, I don't know. I think like what he said, when I'm QBing your sales, you're going to be happy or whatever. Like that's too bad. And you have a starting point and you just whittle it down until it's a absolute katana of a weapon. And I think that's the only answer here.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing. Like if you take it too seriously and get too offended by it, like that's kind of I don't know. It's a dick move. People aren't going to like that, and you're going to put people off. So is that kind of your goal here? Is it really worth being that annoyed that like a couple people here and there make a joke about this? Like I don't know.
I just think back to that Michael Jordan commercial where it's the old white guy and the guy's waiting to pick him up at the airport with the Michael Jordan sign. He's like, oh, I mean, there's a real sentiment there where it's just like, but I mean, people aren't confusing him. They're just like dudes at work being annoying. So I don't know. I like Ryan's idea.
It could be something way worse too. Like it could be,
it could be Wayne Gretzky or something. It's like it's not the greatest of all time, right?
Yeah, I mean, nobody really gets named that anymore. But
different spelling.
Yeah, I don't think we did a very good job with that one.
No, I think you just gotta.
I think there's no good answer except for the one you had, Ryan. I just think that's what it is. If you're not going to hyphenate or put your middle initial in there,
what would be the worst athlete name to share? I'm trying to think.
Richie Incognito? No, I don't know.
Well, that would be a
no.
tough
He's cleared now.
He's cleared now. Yeah, that's right.
He's good.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Dick Pole.
Dick Pole.
Okay. Got a lot of feedback on The Road. People had never read The Road before. Have now read The Road. They understand why I hold it in such high regard. Some people were like, it's really depressing. Didn't need that. Sorry.
Is that corresponding to the movie The Road? Because I did see that.
No. In the book The Road, you want everyone to survive. In the movie, you're like, whatever.
But it is
You'd have to
based on
movie,
the book,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure.
It just didn't. It was a really hard thing, I think, for someone to capture in a film. So it was something I went into it way too hot. Because granted, the movie had already been out. It's like we didn't hear much about this. Incredible book, probably my favorite book of fiction ever. So is it even possible to be served adequately going in with that kind of deal? Right? Like I don't even think that's possible. All right, we need another one here where I feel like
one quickie here.
Do some work. We had 1 million people so mad at the Venmo guy. So if the Venmo guy's still listening to us after we said what's wrong with you, just so you know, like no one has your back. Nobody.
I've had several people mention that to me and being like, that person's insane.
Right. Okay. Do we do a heavy one? No, I don't think we have enough time.
Let's do a quick one. We got a quick one.
Yeah. Well, the thing is the last batch, they're manifestos. So I was going through them this morning and I'm just like, man, dudes are like, some people will be like, all right, I'll make this quick. It's like 80 paragraphs later. What? How long do you think these things are supposed to be? Okay. Is my friend being used for a green card? This should be simple. 5'10", 185, pickup comp, late career, Udonis Haslem, not great, big team first guy. My friends like having me on the team and everyone gets fired up when I rarely hit a three. Names have been changed. One of the core guys in our group, Nick from college, recently started dating a girl, Katie, he met on the apps. Nick has always been a bit of a hopeless romantic, but unfortunately hasn't had a ton of luck in the dating world. So we found out that he met Katie. We were all super excited for him. The only problem is that Katie is an international student, recently graduated, and her school visa is going to expire towards the end of the year. When the group found out about this, we were bummed out for him because we assumed this would probably mean the relationship wouldn't last very long, as he's going to have to return to her home country.
Or worse.
And doing the long distance after only dating, let alone knowing each other for a couple of months, might not make a whole lot of sense. To my surprise, I found out that Nick has been slowly informing her friends of the past few weeks. He's planning to propose to Katie at the end of the month so that he could get married before her visa expires so she could stay in the United States. All of the girls in the group are adamant that it's a bold font on adamant, boys. Bad idea. And the guys want to talk some sense in and get him to reconsider. The guys are fairly split. Some agree with the girls. A few are indifferent with the stance that if he really wants to do this, then we should be supportive, even if we don't do it, even if we wouldn't do it if we were him. So the question for you guys is, should we step in and try to convince him not to propose? If so, how hard do you think we should push? Is our guy Nick being used by Katie for a green card? A few things for context. Thank you. Nick has always been a fairly impulsive guy and has had many faces that he's gone in and out of over the years. That's not great. Most everyone, let's see here. Most everyone in the group has talked to Nick about this in some capacity, but no one has ever really explicitly told him to do this. And in the general sense, Nick understands that this is a very quick and possibly impulsive, but still wants to go through with it. Nick does seem happy, but when he talks about her, it doesn't seem like he's head over heels in love, but more of the mindset of, I'm happy enough and I'm sick of the dating scene, so why not get married? Well, here's a couple good reasons. Katie's a decent amount younger than Nick. She's low 20s, and he and Nick, the rest of our group, is around 30. Katie is Nick's first official girlfriend. They've only known each other since September, and they plan to get married in the summer if they go through with this. Yeah, terrible, terrible idea across the board. Now, granted, if your boy Nick just isn't, he might be embarrassed. He might be way more into her than you guys realize, but he's incredibly embarrassed about the whole dynamic of this stuff. On the surface, this is a bad idea across the board. I think it's terrible. I got to be honest, did we know which country she was from? Does that play into the calculus here? It probably does. Maybe it doesn't feel great to say.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, who are you asking? It's not like I would do this, but go ahead.
You could frame it maybe as just like, hey, just want to make sure if you're, love that you're happy. Just want to make sure that you've, you're not leaving yourself exposed here, and maybe get a little prenup together or something like that.
Does he have any money?
And in that way, you can just say your concerns, but it's like, as long as you have the prenup, because here's what I'm worried about, but as long as you have that, good. I'm not saying you're making a huge mistake. And you just use that helpful way of saying your concerns, but if you get this, then, I don't really see an issue. The other thing is what's the new administration, is the new administration have any new rules about this? Because I know they're certainly doing some intake stuff that's different. I wonder if there's I don't know. Maybe, I think really the best part would, I'm just trying to dance
just
around.
Walking on eggshells.
I just think the best thing would be form it that you're,
don't do it.
Hey, great idea, but make sure you're safe, because otherwise I think he might just turn it off to the whole thing. It's you're a non-supportive person. What does the Scientologists call those people? Suppressive people or something? You don't want to come off as a suppressive person. You don't want to come off as a suppressive person or something. So you just you get what you got to say out through the guise of being helpful, instead of being like, what are you, fucking insane? Because that guy probably turns his ears off when you say that.
I think you can't tell him hey, you should not do this. But, you guys are out hanging out. Just be like, hey, man, just talking this through. You sure this is what you want to go with? Don't make him seem like an asshole. Don't make him seem like an idiot, because he's probably just going to push back on it. The other thing is, clearly, this is a bad decision for 95% of the population. But first serious girlfriend, you guys are 30. I don't know. Maybe he's just I found somebody I like, and it doesn't seem like he's killing it out there on the girl scene to begin with. So maybe this actually could be a good thing for our guy, Anybody think of that?
He's screwed. His first girlfriend at 30 years old. She's foreign.
But that's a weird thing to begin with. That means
he's
not a normal guy to begin with. So maybe this kind of thing would work for him.
He's hosed.
Just send him a link from LegalZoom and just be like, here, boilerplate prenup.
Yeah.
There's my blessing. Just make sure you get that done.
If he doesn't have anything, if he doesn't have any cash, then, you know, who cares? Like, he might be fine. Like,
well, the
right,
other thing is, right?
You get the futon.
Yeah. The other thing is, right, it's like a 5-year rule, right? This has to stand for 5 years. She can't bounce and just be out and about, right? I think there's like a certain amount of time you have to stay married, because I think that's one of the things they
service time in baseball.
Yeah.
When is she arbitration eligible? Okay. That'll do it for us. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Wargon. Thanks to Steve. We now have video that corresponds for the podcast episode. So that's great. We're excited about that. You can also check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe. Ryen Russillo Podcast from Ringer, Spotify.